Well, folks, in today's video we're going to be basically building a Tyco Chattanooga from the ground up. These are all the many parts that will hopefully go into constructing it. I don't think too many people know the story of how I got this thing. Basically, I was at the model train and slot car shop in York, Maine, and they were selling bags of locomotives. And some of you guys might remember I did a video where I bought like 5 bags of broken locomotives, and a whole bunch of them I was able to fix up. But in that lot, they had the Tyco Chattanooga, and the future wasn't looking too bright for it in a lot of ways, because I was not able to find this part and this part for a reasonable price. So I basically started parting it out to restore other locomotives, thinking that I wouldn't be able to find those parts. But then a ways back, I wound up being in Merrickville, Ontario at Larkspur Line, and I found this, and it had a set of wheels, so I think I bought it for $10, which was way cheaper than on eBay, where they're trying to sell these parts for like $30. It's absolutely ridiculous, really. And I realized, we can actually rebuild this thing. So we're going to try to do just that in this video. We'll start with just taking out all the parts. There are so many parts, I don't even know if I have enough just it is, because I don't remember what parts I took off of it. But we've got a whole bunch here, and luckily we've also got that Tyco Canadiana, and I've decided that I'm willing to spare some parts off that, because I can turn that one into a dummy. I already have 2 other ones, so I can turn that one into a dummy, and it can just get pulled along, and then with all the parts off of it, we can get our Tyco Chattanooga going. And let's get started, because all we have right now is a great big pile of parts, and hopefully by the end of this video we'll actually have a locomotive out of all of them. Let's find out. Just to start off, I want to point something out. I had 2 identical sets of wheels, because this also came with a set of wheels, even though it didn't have the tender or anything like that. And I wasn't sure which one to pick, but I was looking over the parts, and I noticed something, which was that the other set didn't have the little stairs. So I did pick this one. They're both basically in the same condition as far as they work, so yeah, I thought that was fine. So we're now going to try to get the locomotive part of it together, and then we'll try to get the tender together. And for those of you guys that don't know, these old Tyco engines are tender driven, so we don't have to worry about motors or anything. We just need to get this part and this part together. One thing you may notice is I have this part, and this is what goes under the boiler. We're going to be taking off this in exchange for this, just because you can see that one's painted. I don't think this came off a Chattanooga. I think it came off some other Tyco steam locomotive that's basically the same. So this will be just a bit more original, having that silver there, and I think it will look better, just a little bit of extra detail. So we're going to try to figure out how to take this part off. I believe there's just a clip located right there. So if we push down on it, should be able just to kind of pull this part off. Yep, there it goes. And I'll take our new one there and snap it right into place. And just like that, we've got our new, not boiler, firebox. Alright, so slight edit. It turns out I can't just put this on without this part. This is actually where the smoke unit's located, and I didn't really care because I don't have any intentions of using the smoke unit. It's basically shot. You can see it's not really doing its job anymore, but it turns out I actually do need that just so it can attach to the rest of it. So we're going to put this piece back into play. And the power has just gone out. Alright, so power back on. I don't know what caused that. There's no storm or anything outside. I think that the company is probably working on the line somewhere around the neighborhood. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to put this piece back on, and then we'll be able to hopefully attach it to this whole apparatus. Yeah, it all seems about right. Let's take that. Yeah, it all seems relatively good. Alright, so we've got this part connected to the bottom now, so that's basically done. One thing I did notice is that we're missing the drawbar, which goes kind of between basically the tender and the locomotive. So we're going to have to fashion up something to replace that, because it is required to distribute the force when you know it's going forward there to the locomotive. So yeah, we'll have to figure out a solution for that. In the meantime, let's get working on fixing up the motor. Now, before we go about actually working on putting the gears and stuff back in, I'm just going to give everything a good cleaning with alcohol, because I can see tons of old grease on here. So, and it will just, it will all perform a bit better if everything has just been given a good cleaning there. Alright, so we've got that all cleaned out. It is crazy how much grease came out of there. Well, at least oil. So we'll let that dry, and then we'll also give all the wheel sets here a nice cleaning there, so that this thing is ready to go. Alright, now with all the parts clean, we're going to start putting everything back together. We'll begin with the gears by putting the slightest amount of oil, as always. And that's fairly good. And that's also good. This big gear is a little interesting because it does rub up against this smaller gear in some cases. So what we'll do is we'll just put a bit of oil on the top here. We'll let it run down this. I'm not sure if you guys can see, but the oil's going down. And we just rub that little bit of oil out, kind of just spread it until it covers the entire gear. You can kind of see the sheen on there, but it is not a thick layer of oil, and that will be just enough to lubricate it. We'll also put a bit of oil in there and pop that over. And you can see a little bit of oil getting on the bottom gear. That's the area where the bit of friction's happening, so luckily the oil's there to keep it all lubricated. Got a choice of two different armatures. I'm going to put this one in. You can kind of see the coils on this one have some slight kind of burnt marks versus this one's quite clean, which likely means this one may have shorted coils, which is not something we want. So we'll just try putting this one in. It should work fine, and it does fit there. And now what we'll do is we'll put the pivot gear on. We'll just slide that down there. Just do a little test to make sure. Just turn the actual armature, see if it's turning the gears, and it appears to be doing so. So we'll put a bit of crazy glue to solidify that, and then we'll continue. If you do this bit yourself, be very careful with the amount of crazy glue you use. You don't want to use much, and you also always want to make sure it's always on the top, because if you put too much and it runs, let's say, down the sides, it could get on this gear and it will seize this gear to that gear, or it could go even worse and it could go right down into the motor bearing there, and if it goes there, it's going to seize the motor. So just be very kind of careful. We'll just put some oil for the motor bearing as well while we're at it, and we'll just let that sit, and when it's done we'll be able to start putting the wheels and whatnot back on. Alright, so the CA is now dry, and just to test to make sure it didn't seize, we're just going to turn the gear, and as you can see it turns freely, so we know we didn't mess any of that up. Anyway, this is the bottom part. It's going to hold all the wheels on, so we're going to put the wheels into place. We'll start by lubricating all the bearings. I think you guys know the drill for the amount of oil that's required. And we're just going to put the middle set there, two others like so. I just put this whole piece over it and put the screws in. Now we're going to put this piece on. Kind of, if you just sort of wiggle it gently, you can get it around that pivot there, and you can put some oil there if you want. There's supposed to be some C-clips. I don't have them, but in my experience, just as long as you're not tipping the engine over often, that won't be a problem for you. Alright, so we've basically got all this together. Now we have to put on the cover for the brushings there. I have cleaned up the commutator, as you can see. Now, this was actually the one off my Tyco Canadiana, which I replaced because it was shot, so I wasn't really sure what I could do to hold down the brushings and springs. So I fashioned up this little piece of copper here, and this just sort of slides over top and will hopefully hold it all in place. Somebody probably won't like that I'm doing this, but it's either this or chuck it in the trash, so best of options, I guess. Anyway, let's start, I guess, putting that on now. Alright, we got this part in because I thought getting this on was going to be really tricky because I had to do it with one brush in, because there's no way that that covering plate there was going to come off to put the brush in, so I just decided to go ahead and do it off camera. But I'll put in the second one, I guess. I'm not sure I'm going to get that screw in. Sort of put the horse before the cart, I guess, with this part of the restoration. I managed to. Fair enough. Now for the second one, we'll just drop our little spring in there. Or not the spring, that's the brush. Followed by the spring. Alright. Let's try to just kind of... I guess that works. I just have to put in that second screw there. This won't work, actually. I've made a flawed mistake. So this first piece contacts the shell, but then the second one, the cover for the spring there, it's being held in up against this. So if you hooked up a wire to this, it would go here, and then it would short the whole thing. So we're going to have to figure out a new solution. Alright, so here's something I've done. I soldered this wire on. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. As I was saying, we're going to put some hot glue over the top here, and it's going to hold the plate on. This is not a good solution, and the reason for that is if the motor gets hot and that heat goes up the springs, the plate on the top will also get hot, and after a certain amount of time it will wind up melting all the hot glue which is holding it on. So basically the motor could self-destruct, but if we don't run it for too long, that won't be a problem. And this plate is not good. It's going to go at some point, so we'll find a better solution in the future, but this is what we have for now, basically. I think if we just go at it with some pliers, we can just yank out the side that's in the way and then chop it off. Alright, so now that we've got all that fitted up, we're going to actually try to test this whole setup. Doubt it's going to work, but... Well, now it's apparently to life. I don't know what's going on with it, but it started, so we can now put our tender cover on. There is a hole for the wire there. Let's see if we can feed that through. Yeah, there we go. There's one part. And we just need to figure out how to wire this all together. I sandwiched the wire from the tender basically in between the cab of the locomotive and the bottom part. I also flipped over the wheels on the tender because I discovered that the way this thing picks up power is opposite, so I need to flip the wheels around. So anyway, in theory, and this is talking from the perspective of a perfect world, this thing should work. That doesn't mean it will, but there's only one way to find out. Alright, so we've got her all set up on the track, and I have to say it is a great looking locomotive. It really does look good, especially with the red cab. I know that's not how they looked when they came from the factory, but I think it looks cool. Anyway, here we go, giving this thing some power, and nothing. It's not coming to life. Weird. So as it would turn out, the little copper bolts on the inside of the wheels, I wound up mistaking those for contacts, so I misjudged which side this was picking up power. So when I flipped the wheels around, I didn't actually prevent anything from shorting. All I did was make it so that all the wheels pick up their power from the same rail, which obviously doesn't work. You need to have both currents from each rail. So anyways, I flipped the wheels back over on this, so hopefully it will work now, but there's only one way to find out. So we're going to give this thing some power, and nothing is happening. Oh. For a second there, I felt it move a little. Hey, you guys see that? I'm moving backwards, let's try forwards. You can hear it turning over. I lost it. I don't know what's going on here. Whoops. Oh, it ran for a second there. Of course, it still doesn't have that little drawbar, so it's not perfect, but like it's trying. Oh, so look. Oh, look at her go. Even made it over the first switch. Not the second one, but she's running. Not perfect, but hey, whoops. That would be my bad there. It doesn't seem to like this bridge too much. Well, now it's running. Alright, here we go. Okay, let's see. Will she do a full lap this time? Damn. Okay, I see what happened. It stalled and that just came up. But this thing does run, so I guess we can call it a victory. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm quite happy with this. Alright.